I've done a few testimonies, little ones here and there, which were kind of nerve-wracking a little bit, but this is going to be my full-blown testimony. They told me at first, it's like, just 5 or 10 minutes, John, and I'm like, well, I asked John over there, I said, it's probably going to go over 5 or 10 minutes because I got quite a bit to say, and I really believe people should hear from the beginning my testimony. So, but before we begin my testimony, when I was asking my family members if they would like to come, and I got a bunch of my family members over here that came to my testimony. But when I asked my nephew if he'd like to come to my testimony, he said yes, but he kind of got hurt at work, so he's not here right now. And he asked me a question that really, it didn't bother me, but it concerned me. He says, Uncle, what is a testimony? And I was like, he didn't know it. Before I could answer, my loving wife says, it's when your uncle went from bad to good, is what the answer was. And it didn't sit well with me all week long on that he didn't really know what a testimony was. So I was talking to my wife about it, and I said, I'm going to look this up in the dictionary. We're gonna see what the definition of a testimony is out of the dictionary. And it says, the first thing it says, a formal, written, or spoken statement, especially one given in a court of law. That's the number one in the dictionary. Number two, it says, evidence or proof provided by the existence or appearance of something. It's like, that's kind of, I don't know, that didn't sit well. The third one in the dictionary says a public recounting of a religious conversion or experience. And I was like, all right, that's pretty awesome. That in our dictionary, which men write up, that our religion, Christianity, for me, was mentioned in the dictionary. I was not expecting that. But I also wanted to tell my nephew, if he was here, that the oldest book known to man was written by many testimonies. And these testimonies are similar testimonies to what you and I go through on a day-to-day basis. It's the same then as it is now. We may have more technology than they did or whatever, but us as humans, we all go through the same things in life, whatever life has to throw at us. So, with that being said, I'm going to start with my testimony. Now, all through childhood, I remember, I've always been a Christian. I've always been a believer. I remember going to several different churches as a kid with my grandma and my grandpa. And I remember going to Sunday schools, different Sunday schools. And I remember even going to a Jehovah's Witness church that my uncle was in. I only remember going there one time. And that was kind of weird. I don't know, not getting presents on certain days or stuff like that. It just didn't sit well with me as a kid, especially as a kid. But there was no judgments, nothing like that. It just was not for me or my family, obviously. But in my childhood, when my family started going to church with my mom, my dad would go every now and then, not all the time, and I'd go with my Aunt Christy and my cousin Tommy, and we'd go to church, and we finally, I think about 8 years old, I think I was 8 years old, that we found a church. It's called By His Word, so we went to church, and I remember going to this church. I think it was like a month after they opened. And they opened up on it used to be Hosmer, but now it's Tacoma Boulevard. And I remember I loved going to church. I loved going to Sunday school. And then when I got a little older, I remember going to youth group, and that's where me and my cousin went to hunter's education at church, because our fathers were big into hunting. I remember going skiing. I remember having sleepovers. I remember that we went to youth camp. I remember that. This testimony is bringing all this up because I had forgotten a lot until I started writing stuff down. And then I also remember that our church was, I became a born-again Christian. And if people don't know what that is, it's all about speaking in tongues. Like when you get so involved in your relationship with the Lord, when you don't know what to pray for, it'll allow you to pray in a language that you and God can only understand between the two of you. And all through school, we would go to church, and my friends would go with me every now and then. By His word, started in that building there. Then they moved to another building on South Quay, and then they ended up at my high school that I was going to, Mount Tahoma, which this church I hear was at Mount Tahoma, the new Mount Tahoma. I was the old Mount Tahoma. And but my friends would go with me, and I guess at that time I became a leadership role, I guess you could call it. I never thought of myself as a leader, but I had a lot of friends that followed me, and I believe it's because of the Christ that was in me back then. So, moving on, when I got my driver's license, I bought a car, a 70 Nova. Me and my dad were building it when I was 16. I think I got it done when I was 18. He had a 73 Camaro, and he was building that. We were doing side by side. But when I got my license, I had another car, a Vega, and I started. I guess I started. Being a teenager is what I want to call it, because I started skipping school in the 10th grade. We were going, me and my buddies, when we started driving, we would go to other schools and hang out at other schools, and we'd go to parks and stuff like that. And we started going to parties, lots of caterers, and at these parties, y'all know, we're all adults. There's drugs there. There's drugs, there's alcohol, and I really loved to drink, and I really loved to smoke weed about this time in high school, and it affected me so bad, and I believe by writing this testimony, this is when I started kind of going on my own way and not the Lord's way, and but as a teenager, I wasn't doing very well at school at this point in the 10th grade. My parents came up to me and they're like, "Hey, you're not going to graduate on time. You're 4 credits behind." And so sorry.
All right.
So I was working at the time too, and my parents gave me an ultimatum. They're like, "Hey, you're going to be the first grandchild of both sides of our family to graduate if you get through school. But at the rate you're going right now, you're just going to be a dropout. You're going to be in school a couple extra years or whatever." So I started going back to church a little bit more. I mean, it wasn't that far to go. It's at my school. I'm only a few blocks down the road, so I started getting into getting more into positive environments, positive influences, because smoking weed and drinking alcohol just was starting to ruin my life at that point, my teenage life. So, all said, my 11th grade year was really rough because I had to make up 4 credits on top of the 16 that I had to have there. And sure enough, every one of my classes were main classes, and my elective classes I worked for at work. So I ended up graduating on time in the 12th grade. It being the first graduation and the only graduation that my grandma got to see before she passed away. So I graduated, everything's going good, I got a good job. I meet the woman of my life, I thought at this time, and it's ironic because her dad was a pastor. I had no idea that's how it would have happened. But me and my cousin, we met her together actually. Julie Block, remember? Yeah. Yeah. He went out on a date with her, and she ended up liking me to get to me, which is pretty crazy. But anyways, I was head over heels for this woman, and I started working nights. And well, about this time, me and my dad had built these 2 cars together side by side, and my car was pretty quick. It was really fast, and it was so fast from the first time we fired it up. My mom told my dad he's not driving that, and so I'm gonna skip forward just a little bit more after graduation, and when I turned 21, I worked a lot. I worked with my dad. Just to give you a brief background, I've probably been working since I was 8, 9 years old. My dad was a ceramic tile setter since he was 15. So I've been working a lot. But when I turned 15, I was able to work in fast food restaurants or whatever, and I worked all the time. And when I graduated, I started a job out at the court commissary. I made really good money. And but when I turned 21, I took 2 weeks off for my 21st birthday. And on my birthday, my friends come over, and I ended up being designated driver. I don't know how that happened, but I did. And we went and parked down to South Conway on 56th Street and hit every bar all the way down until I got to my car again. And so that's pretty messed up. But then we went to an after-hours party, and somebody saw that I was pretty hammered, and they didn't want me driving at all. So they're like, "Hey, come to the bathroom with me." So I went in the bathroom, and when we got in the bathroom, he chalked up a couple lines for us of methamphetamines. And I took it, and I was instantly sober, just like that. And it instantly ruined my life. 9 days after I turned 21, I rolled my nose 4 times. I bounced across, the car threw me from the car, according to witnesses. I bounced across the asphalt for 100 feet. I had the whole side of me road rash. I looked like the Elephant Man, but it was a very traumatic turn in life. How the arrows were going this way, then all of a sudden it just went backwards. And in my testimony, you'll hear how it continually goes backwards. But that moment, that moment probably was one of the hardest moments in my life that I chose for myself. But the outcome was, I don't remember the accident, or kind of vaguely remember the party I was at, but I do know if I wasn't a believer, if I wasn't a man of Christ, I should have been dead. I do believe that God intervened for a moment like today, because no one should have survived that accident. If you'd have seen my car, it was a hammer. So, with that being said, after my parents come pick me up at the hospital, a couple weeks later, I get a letter in the mail saying that we need to show up in court because I also got a DUI. And as I was in bed, I was in bed rest for probably 10 weeks at that moment. It didn't work. So now, so I just kind of ignore the letter. I do go to court, but after I go back to work, I'm making money again, and my drinking gets a little more intense. I'm probably every night after work, I'm probably drinking at the bar. The bowling alley on base was open 24 hours a day, and you could drink 24 hours a day. It's the only place in the state of Washington you could do that. And I didn't care at this point in my life. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but I was so angry because at this point I was like, God, why have you done this to me? I was doing so well. I blamed him. For that. It was my choice. I chose to drink. I chose to do drugs. And I chose to get in that car that night. But I still blamed him for some reason. So in this process that I'm going through court and stuff, I ended up taking a plea bargain. It was a deferred one for my insurance. I was thinking of it the whole time for my insurance, but not to get better, because you have to go through drug and alcohol counseling for 2 years and be clean for the whole 2 years. Well, in this process, I give my dad $1,500 in the motor out of my Nova for his '73 Camaro that we had built side by side. And a year and a half into my deferred prosecution, okay, if anybody's ever known what going to outpatient is, there's 3 stages of it, and I was in the 4th stage, which was like once a month. I only had like 2 more sessions left. I wrecked the '73 Camaro with a second DUI. So I destroyed both mine and my dad's car that we built side by side together. What a good son, huh? I couldn't learn from my first mistake, so I had to go wreck another car. And this anger is just building up inside me. I just get so angry, and I'm taking it out on the world. Always blaming God. No one knows this about me. You guys are the first people that I've ever told this to. But I was blaming it. And in this time, there's, out of my whole life, if there's one moment that I could take back, was after the dust cleared and my dad's father concerned look was gone. I wish I could take back the look of disappointment. And it didn't stop there. It didn't stop there. I went out. I met my wife now, Dawn, in the bar. My mom actually dropped me off at the bar and was going to pick me up because there was no more drinking and driving at this point. And when I met Dawn, me and her were out drinking a lot every night, enjoying ourselves. At this time I was working in the mornings with my dad. She was working at IHOP, and one day she tells me she's pregnant. And that's with my oldest boy, Austin. But now I'm drinking. She's just driving me around. We're going to bars. She's still, because she wasn't going to drink anymore. And, I need to step back for a second, though. The year I got into my first accident was the last year that I had went to church. And until you hear the rest of my testimony, but it was the last year. So that didn't work out with me and Dawn. I said I'd support you and the child, and you guys are not going to believe this. But I'm still hanging out at the bars, and I met this female, Donita. We dated for 2.5 weeks, and she asked me to marry her, and I did. I'm sorry, but that was a piece of shit move. Especially to Dawn. I realize now. But this is the image I'm trying to show you what alcohol and drugs do to your thinking. Because when you impair your thinking, when you're altering your mind with medicating it with alcohol, marijuana, weed, your reality is no longer the reality of that in the world that you're living in. It's an altered world where the enemy, and the enemy, which I really believe, is the devil himself. He just gets in there, and he can tell you things and give you false lies, false pretenses. But when you're not thinking straight, I'm sorry, this is really hard for me. But when you're not thinking straight, your actual mind is like mush. What you think is reality is not reality, and when you think what is right is not right. You justify so many different things that it's not funny, and I justified that I deserve to be married because I earned it. I hadn't earned nothing at this point because me and my first wife, we were in and out of bars every night. I mean, she used to dance. We used to teach and compete in country dances, so we were in the bars every night for like 3 years that I thought was an awesome marriage. I thought I was very happy. Alcohol does that to you. It'll make you feel very happy inside. But that ended up in a failure too. Ended up getting a divorce. And so this anger inside of me is just growing. It's growing. And I tried to put it down, but I didn't. So I turned to drugs, more drugs. Then one day, it was about a year after me and my wife split up. Dawn, my wife now, she invites me out for my birthday to go dancing. And I say yes. So we go dancing. We're on the bars, and a couple months later, she tells me she's pregnant again. We have Cody. I've not dealt with anything this whole time, so I'm already putting this family in danger. Most of the time, when me and her were together, so we got back together, I was still in my old ways. I never lied to her, but I guess she just accepted. We made a vow to each other when Cody was born that no matter what differences we had, that they would never be raised with split parents. Austin was born in '96. Cody was born in 2000. Now that my boys are older, I think Austin's we're gonna jump forward some. There's been heartaches, headaches. You can just imagine what me and my wife put each other through. What would I put my wife through? She wasn't my wife at the time. My son comes home one day, I think it was third grade. He was in tutoring. He was being tutored up at Tacoma Baptist School, and he comes home and he says, "Dad, my tutor wants to know if a family can sponsor us." Like, sponsor us? What's this? Yeah, it's like sponsoring families that are in need or whatever. I said, "Well, we're not in need." He's like, "No, but there's families that do not have somebody to sponsor, and they want to sponsor our family." I was like, "Sure." Well, it ended up being Dale and Chloe. They sponsored us for Christmas. I never forget the first time we met them. They brought in presents to fill this stage up here. They brought in so many presents for my family. I was overwhelmed, and I asked them. I said, How did you know about our family?" They're like, "Well, our church is a sister church to this, and so we just feel like we don't have no children or whatever, so we sponsor families that are in need." I was like, "Oh, well, what church you go to?" They're like, Trinity Church. Like, I said, I haven't been to church since '93. This is like 2004. They invited us, me and Don, to go to church, and we started going to church. Went to church for the first time. And we've been going to this church for a little while. Not as much as we should have been going, because we race BMX bikes on the weekends, our family. Instead of Sunday dinner, we race BMX bikes. So Sunday was usually the main event, so a lot of times we didn't go. But on the off days, we would end up going to church. Well, as my relationship with Christ was growing a little bit stronger at this point, you know, me and my wife, well, at Trinity they offered this class called Parenting 101. And I was like, babe, something's drawing me for us to go to this class. We really need help in this area. It won't hurt us to understand what parenting is actually all about. We've known it's one of the things where it's on the job training. Parenting is, period. That's all I can say. It's on the job. So we went to this class. I think it was a 6-week class, and this one Sunday, we were at the track, and I said, Dad, I said, what? I said, this Wednesday, me and Don were graduating Parenting 101. He's like, really? He's like, I said, yeah. He's like, I'm so proud of you, kid. And he said, you're a better man than I could ever be. And I was like, there's no way I could be a better. He says, well, you're a better father than I could have ever been. I was like, no, Dad. He's like, you're going to graduate this Parenting 101 on your own. No court order. No, there's no court order. You did this on your own, and I'm so proud of you. And the next day, Monday, my kids are watching me perform CPR on my dad in my front yard. So obviously, you know, now I'm pissed. Now I'm really, really pissed. There's no anger about it. He took my dad away from me. I really blame him now. Just when I was starting to get so close to you, you take my dad from me. How dare you? I didn't go to church for a while. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know how to be. I didn't have a bunch of men like you that I got now that I could turn to at that point. This is probably my second most darkest days. But I kept praying. Why? I kept praying. Why? I start to heal and I start to mend. I start to go back to church a little bit more. Then that was in 2008 that I lost my dad. I'd only been to church a few times. From 2008 to probably 6 years ago, when we get a phone call. Saying that my nephew had just took his own life. At this point, I told God I hated him. I hated him because there's somebody like Dominic. Why didn't you intervene? Why wasn't somebody there who had all these questions? It killed me more than when my dad passed, because I felt like I was a failed uncle, that I didn't listen enough, that I didn't do enough. And how dare God tell me that He loves me, that He loves His children so much, because I know my father would have never done that. This is the point where I totally lock up. I don't let my wife in. I don't let my kids in. My kids have to suffer. I medicate myself with drugs so I don't have to deal with anything. I was so numb. And eventually, my kid, my oldest boy, left and moved to Florida to be away from me because he couldn't stand me. My youngest told me he hated my guts, and my wife didn't want to be around me at all. I lost everything to these drugs, and I couldn't understand. I was so angry. I was so angry. At this point, I'm totally lost. I don't know where to go, who to turn to. I went to church. I want some explanation. I meet my brother in Christ, Rendell, and he prayed for me one day. He just said, "You just come over to my seat. I feel like I need to pray for you." And I said, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't know what it was, but something drew me to pray for you." And I was like, I need all the prayer I can get right about now. And I didn't talk to my son for probably over a year, not him directly. My other boy was coming around a little bit. My wife didn't want to be around me at all. I lived with my sister for a while. But I went to church on my own now. I can't explain it. But I know it's God's love that was in my ear this whole time. He was trying to get over the mess. He was trying to get over the trash. He was trying to get me out of this cloudiness feeling, because the next thing I know, I'm sitting in Trinity's parking lot in my car, looking up at the sign that says Jesus loves you. And I'm like, God, if any time that I need you now. I need you right now. And he says, I ain't never left you. But if you get in that building, you'll get the help you need. And I went in there. I sat by myself. And I was listening. We'd go through worship, and I listened to the sermon. And at the end, Pastor Raleigh's asking anybody if they want to come to the altar, and he's explaining, drug addiction, or loss of a loved one, or if you need prayed for this, that, the other. You know how it is when they get the message within them. There's certain things that they pray, and there was nobody at the altar. And so I blurted out, what about people with anger issues? And the whole church just dead silent. Dead silent. Let me tell you. So Pastor Raleigh asked me to stand up. He's like, who is that? And I said, that's Jonathan. He's like, come up here, son. They come up there. He's like, what seems to be wrong? I said, I'm so damn angry. I said, that Lord up there that you tell me that loves me so much, he deserves a chin check. Because he has put me through so much, and I just want the anger to go away. It's like, what I was saying in court, that was the mild version, or in church. He had all his elders and all the ushers take me to the back room. And they're all surrounded. I'm like, they're all surrounded. They're trying. I said, I don't need to be preached to right now. I said, I'm angry. I just have a bunch of anger in me. I'm so angry. I don't know why I'm angry, but I'm so angry and I want it to go away. Rendell, he steps in me right here where I can't see nobody else. He's like, dude, do you believe in Christ? I said, I always believed in Christ. He says, do you want him as your Savior? I said, yes. He said, are you ready to commit to this? And I said, yes. And he said, well, we're going to pray for you. And they started praying upon me. I had, 10, I think it was 10 elders praying on me. The next thing I know, I woke up, I was on the floor, and I looked up, and the anger was gone. Completely gone. I know it's hard for some people to swallow, and a lot of people don't get touched by God in that way. But it was a divine intervention that God took that anger away so my mind wouldn't be clouded no more by anything. And since then, I have been building a relationship with God every day. Yes, I fall short a lot of times, and yes, I make mistakes, but here I am giving you guys my testimony that no matter what life throws at you, no matter how hard it seems, no matter how foggy or cloudy or dark your mind is in, God's light is brighter than it all. You just got to let him in. If you really, truly want a better life, or actually I should say a joyful life, because joy covers so much. Happiness, peace of mind. Peace of mind is so big. When you have peace of mind, then it's amazing that I never thought that I would be standing up here giving my testimony, not just in front of people I don't know, people I do know, but I have my family here. Which is, I've been praying that they see that I'm real, that none of this is made up. I've lived this. And that I'm no longer lost. And I want to be that leading role to my family, whether I'm the leader or not, because I can sit in the back just as well, but I want to show that I am here and that I'm sorry that I've been lost for so long, that I wasn't there, but I'm here now. Thank you. Thank you for my testimony.
Praise the Lord.
Bring up the song. Can you just bring up the screen with the whole song?
Sing the first line.
I was gonna talk, but, what I thought maybe our discussion could be was, at one point, really hit me because I've had some tough times, and I just kept praying. There's a point where you said that, John, that you were in a tough spot, and you just kept praying. I had done that. So man, can we just speak Psalm 23, and then maybe for a discussion, if anyone would wait, or hang around, and just share times. And there's a time when all we can do is pray. So if we could just say this together. The Lord is
My shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou fillest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
So, Father, we thank you for this time that we can gather. Thank you for such a man as Jonathan to stand before us and testify, witness, and declare your goodness among the people, Lord. So just for those of us that can stay, I pray that the Holy Spirit would come. We would have a wonderful time to share for a little bit longer. And we thank you for this wonderful gathering. For we have gathered in your name. We seek you. We rise early to search and run after you, Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Yes. Anyone needs to run? That was it. I knew I had no chance after John.